How do I keep my avoidant partner? How do I prevent them from running from the relationship? Well, if you're in a relationship with a person that is severely avoidant, regardless of whether they are a dismissive or fearful avoidant, and if this person is not working on themselves, if they're not taking meaningful accountability, then the only way to keep this person is by completely self-sacrificing. Your wants, your needs, your desires have to go right out the window. You have to hold no boundaries at all with this person, and you have to walk on eggshells to avoid triggering them. Even then, it's still very likely that this relationship will come to a crashing end. When you are in a one-way relationship with a person that's emotionally unavailable, you are in a car heading towards a cliff. When you self-sacrifice and you fail to hold boundaries, you're not stopping the car from going off the cliff. You're just slowing the speed of the car. But guess what? It's still heading towards the cliff. You're going to get the same result, but now that result means that you've spent more time and emotional energy into a person that's not investing it in you. And what you've done is you've only hurt yourself and taught yourself to become more anxious. Because when you self-sacrifice, you're teaching yourself that your wants, your needs, your feelings, your boundaries don't matter, and that this person's feelings are more important than your own. And that is a very anxious message to send yourself. Now, if this person is working on themselves and they're showing meaningful accountability, different story. But if they are still actively avoiding, then all you're doing is hurting yourself and enabling this person. One of the core components of emotional availability is the ability and willingness to empathize with your partner, to feel their emotions along with them, to have genuine care and concern for their partner's needs, wants, and feelings. People that are emotionally unavailable don't have the ability or willingness to feel that empathy. And because of this, they approach a relationship with a what's in it for me attitude. What do I get out of this? How does this make me feel? And because of that, it is a one-way relationship where they focus on getting their wants and needs met while neglecting the other person. And severe avoidants are emotionally unavailable. And one of the other big problems is that avoidants avoid. The way that avoidants learn to deal with problems is to avoid it. Nobody ever showed them how to process emotions or deal with stress, so what they learned is to just bottle it up, to stuff it, to stick their head in the sand like an ostrich. Avoid emotions, suppress them rather than processing them. Avoiding problems rather than dealing with them. Running from fears rather than facing them. Avoid, avoid, avoid. This is the result of consistent childhood emotional neglect. This is a person that was consistently neglected by their parents or caretakers, at least when it comes to their emotions. They weren't given the love and the nurturing in the way that they needed. In addition to that neglect, their feelings were routinely dismissed and rejected. If they had a negative emotion, it was shot down. Your emotions aren't welcome here. So they learned to bottle up their emotions, run from problems. But a big issue is they grew up to feel defective and unlovable. That's because they personalize that neglect. There must be something wrong with me. And this is why they put up these walls around their heart. Because their subconscious fear is if my partner gets behind that wall, they will figure me out and I'll be exposed as defective and unlovable and I'll get rejected and abandoned. So they feel unsafe being vulnerable and they feel safe when they create emotional distance between themselves and their partner. And this core wound of defectiveness is why avoidants don't self-reflect. Because self-reflection is the opposite of avoiding. When you self-reflect, you have to process emotions, not run from them. You have to see where you've gone right, where you've gone wrong. Take accountability and reflect on how your behaviors impact others. Very painful, because for the avoidant, if they were to take accountability and say, yep, I did this wrong, in their mind, it would be confirming their own inner defectiveness. It wouldn't just be, I did this wrong. It would be, I did this wrong because I'm defective, because I'm worthless, too painful. So what they do is they look for external things to blame their feelings, fears, and behaviors on. And accountability is an absolute requirement for any kind of growth, any kind of personal growth, especially emotional growth and growing within a relationship. So if this person is still avoiding and not taking accountability and not self-reflecting, what is going to change? You can't do the work for them. You can't carry the burden of the relationship entirely on your shoulders. It takes two. And that's why emotional availability is so important for a lasting, healthy relationship. Because a person that's emotionally available is concerned about the other person's wants, needs, and feelings. And a person that is concerned is also a person that's willing to take accountability. A person that's emotionally available, when they make a mistake, they'll take accountability and work to do better the next time. The emotionally unavailable person is not going to take accountability. And if you hold a boundary with that person, they're going to make it seem like your boundary is the problem, not their behavior. Your boundaries are your sword and shield. They're your limits of what you will and will not tolerate, what you want, don't need, and your expectations. And an emotionally available person is going to respect your boundaries because your feelings and needs are important to them. And if they make that mistake, they will take ownership. The avoidant, well, your boundaries are not going to work for them if they're not working on themselves, and they're going to make it seem like your boundaries the problem. Yes, one of the biggest fears of holding boundaries is if I hold this boundary, this person might leave the relationship. But if they leave the relationship because you asserted a boundary in a healthy way and you laid out what your expectations and needs are, and they ran because of that, what they're telling you is that they were never going to respect your boundaries and they were never going to meet your expectations because ultimately it was all about them. It was a one-way street. On the flip side, your boundaries can be an incentive for this person to actually take accountability and work on themselves. Because when they realize that these behaviors are not acceptable by you, that you're not going to tolerate it, and that you do actually need and require your feelings to be considered and your boundaries to be met, well, that's an incentive for them to do some work if they don't want to lose you and they don't want to lose the relationship. It should be a two-way street with both partners mutually respecting each other's feelings and boundaries. Anything less is a one-way street, and that's not a real relationship. A relationship where you are just completely self-sacrificing and getting breadcrumbs in return is only hurting you. And this is one of the issues that I have with some other content creators on social media, especially ones that deal with attachment and talk about avoidance. Many of them will talk about how to cater to the avoidant, to walk on eggshells, to avoid triggering them, how to manage them, to keep them from running away. But all this is doing is teaching the anxious person to just be more anxious, teaching the partner of the avoidant how to be anxious. Because when you're doing these behaviors and you're catering to the other person, you're telling yourself that your feelings, your wants, your needs don't matter, and that this person's feelings, wants, and needs matter more than your own. That is an incredibly anxious thing to do, and that just pushes you deep into anxious attachment. Your boundaries are how you protect yourself from becoming anxious, and they're how you protect yourself from investing time and energy into an unhealthy relationship, and your boundaries are how you will be free to find a healthy partner, because the healthy partner is going to respect your boundaries. Know your worth, hold your boundaries.